All right, welcome back to another card evaluation here. I'm feeling a little bit under the weather today, but I got Hooves here to kind of help me through it as well. This is probably your favorite class in the game, I would say. I don't know if you would agree. You play Shaman
Yeah,
a lot.
it's between this and Druid, probably.
Okay, fair enough.
Although I really enjoy Warlock as well, but
Gotcha,
probably those two.
Okay, so we'll start talking about these, and any thoughts that you have, just chime in. Okay, so let's start off with this guy, Planetary Navigator. This is a 2 mana 3/2 Draenei. Battle Cry, the next Draenei you play costs 2 less but has Overload 2. Um, so kind of mana cheating. Definitely mana cheating if you're planning to end the game when you play that Draenei anyways.
Yeah.
A very interesting card here. Talk about this for 1 second. I'm just going to open up my door for my dog.
Me talk about it for 1 sec. Okay, I mean, it's an interesting one. I don't really know what other Draenei exist, but it could lead to some good combo potential, I guess. I know in Wild there's ways to unlock your overloaded mana crystals.
Yeah, I
I
was
don't
actually
know if
thinking
that's
about that. I'm not sure if there are any still in standard, but that definitely is like an archetypal thing as well. Is like,
Is there even? I know that there's the one spell, but are there other ways aside from that? Because that spell is definitely not standard anymore.
no, that one isn't. I don't know if there are anymore though. I
I don't
haven't
know if
seen
there
it
are
happen
other
in a
ways.
while, but like, even I've been playing a little bit with the. It's called like Rainbow Shaman or whatever. It's the one where you're trying to play the Razzle Dazzlers. And when you play the draw 3 overload cards, it literally draws none. So overload cards are not necessarily being played all that much in standard currently, but I mean that might just be one deck or whatever, right?
I've never been a big fan of overload cards, to be honest. I tend to avoid them whenever possible.
Well, it's interesting because a lot of them are basically just like mana cheating with like a conditional, like, oh, you're gonna lose out overall, right? Like in the, like if you play a 2 mana overload card, you're probably getting like 3 or 4 mana worth of stats on it, but then you're paying for that the
Yes.
next turn, right? Um, yeah, as for this, I think we will see the value if we move on to the card 2 from this. But let's, just for the time being able to get Draenei out early could be pretty good overall. It's hard to say necessarily because we haven't dealt with any Draenei yet in the actual
Yeah.
game, but some of the effects that they have are pretty good. So I could see this being pretty decent. Next up, let's talk about Nebula. This is a 9 mana arcane spell for Shaman, and it is discover 2 8-cost minions to summon with Taunt and Elusive. Here's all the 8-cost minions in standard right now. I looked these over earlier, and I would say that the general stat line for an 8-cost minion is
Are usually
around
pretty
8
good.
8, right?
Yeah, 8 cost minions usually, I mean, some of them are not great, but for the most part, they have decent stats.
Yeah. Like, at least stat wise, you're probably looking at an 8 8. But the big advantage is that some of these, because a lot of them have battle cries, which is like, okay, that doesn't matter
Almost
really
all of
for
them are
these.
battle cries. Some of
But
them are death rattle.
yeah, you could get like a Thunderbringer. A lot of, not a lot, but a few of the Titans are 8 cost. So like the Primus would be like a high roll to get, as well as potentially getting Tyrion with Elusive as well as Divine Shield and Taunt. That would
Yeah.
suck for your opponent. Uh,
Scroll back down to the bottom of that for a second.
Sorry, what's that?
That Richard Queen is also a good one.
Yeah, that's true. I was looking at that one. So you would get a 4/4, but when it dies, it gives you 2/4/6s with Taunt. But the only disadvantage is that the 4/4 is what's going to get Elusive and Taunt to begin with.
That's fine. It's
But
still
yeah,
just
it's still giving you a
it's
lot
just a
of
good
value.
body.
Other notable stuff that you could get out of this, I
Yeah,
would say
Rag.
Kolgorn. Yeah, Ragnaros.
Even Caligos would be pretty
Yeah,
good.
exactly, because then you get a free
Meg
spell.
Paradon would actually be really nice
Yeah, yeah.
if you get too
Now,
low.
does it becoming dormant remove the elusive that it would put
That's a
and
good
the
question.
taunt? I think it
It's,
would, but I'm not positive.
Yeah, not really sure about that either.
Even if you end up like if that's how it goes, it might still be like a, oh well, I just need to clear my opponent's board, and like Therodon does that for you, right?
Is this summon two separate 8 costs or
Yep.
choose one
Discover
and that
two
summons two copy
individual
them.
ones, and then give each one of them taunt and elusive.
Okay.
Is how I'm reading that, anyways. So I think this is a really good card. However, it does cost 9.
I'd say it's still worth running.
Yeah. If you can
8
find
cost
any way
minions are
to
good enough. There's
bring that
probably
down.
ways to mana cheat it.
Well, definitely with the Titan that Shaman has,
Yep.
the Titan brings it down by 3, right?
There are ways you can get the spell to cost less.
Actually, there's another thing in this expansion that we can talk about later on. So I think Nebula is very good as well. Cosmonaut. 7 mana, 5/5 Draenei. Battle Cry, discover a spell from your deck, reduce its cost by 5. Oh, this is the guy. This is the one that lets you play Nebula for cheap. Granted, though, it costs 7 and it's a 5/5.
I mean, your ideal is you draw the 2 mana that reduces your cost of
Yep.
Draenei by 2. You play that on turn 5, and then you play the spell next turn.
On turn 6 for 5 or for 4.
Yeah.
And then you get to do something else potentially with 2 mana, depending on what you end up getting from it. Yeah. Yeah, as long as you can mana cheat out Cosmonaut, it's very, very strong. If you can't, or if you don't end up getting your Nebula off of it, if you
It still might not be the worst thing ever. You wouldn't want to just throw it down. You need to have it more developed.
The thing
I'd
is,
say-
if you did discover Nebula off of this at full cost,
It's also discover a spell from your deck, not just draw a spell from your deck.
that's true. So you're pretty well guaranteed as long as you haven't drawn both of your Nebulas before you drop this guy.
Well, this deck where I wonder if you don't put more than 3 spells in,
Yeah, so that you're like.
so that you're always guaranteed to get at least
Yeah, that's
one
fair.
copy.
I think this is pretty good. Definitely, if you're able to get Planetary Navigator off first, so that you can make this a 5. It's like, because then on turn 10 as well, or any turn when you have 10 mana, you can drop Cosmonaut, drop Nebula, and still have 1 mana left over. Right? That's a good deal. Okay, let's move on here. First Contact. This one is really good, I think, but let's read it. 1 mana, summon 2 random 1-cost minions, overload 1. What do you think of this one, Hooves?
It's a interesting one. I'd put it in Evolved Shaman.
That's a very good, a good reason to use it for sure. I'm even just thinking
you're only getting 2 cost minions, but I don't really think I'd run this in many decks aside from potentially Evolved Shaman.
well, what's the, like, obviously there are some 1-cost, well, probably a decent amount of 1-cost minions that are just a 1/1 stat line or whatever, but there's also probably a good amount of 1-cost minions that have battle cries that are negatives that give them boosted stats as well, right? Where you can potentially just get those
potentially.
out of this. I didn't pull up the full listing of 1-cost
There's
minions.
There's too many 1-cost minions to go through.
It's a lot to look at, so I didn't feel like it was worthwhile. But
I feel like it's not really that good. I don't really know what instance you would run it in. I'm like racking my head over why you would actually run this card, or in what deck.
I think, like you said, Evolve might be the best case scenario for it, but I could see like,
yeah, I don't know. It's just a little weird.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. I would have thought, honestly, that this one was, like, extremely good. Like, just a good turn 1 drop. You get 2 minions.
I mean, yeah. I guess that you'd play it in aggro, but I don't know what kind of aggro deck Shaman has, but you could play it in an aggro-ish deck.
That's fair. Okay.
But it's only really good if you have it on turn 1. Maybe turn 2.
Yeah, somewhere
Later into the
around
game,
there.
it would feel horrible playing this.
Definitely. Alright, let's move on from this one to Ultraviolet Breaker. Okay, before we start talking about this is new archetype alert. Everyone, new archetype alert. Shaman gets asteroids. There was actually a really fun video that I watched that was kind of like showing off this mechanic that someone made to demonstrate it or whatever, like to reveal these cards. I don't know who made it. I could probably find it in my... I'll link it in the description if I find it, but essentially Shaman has 3 or 4 cards that can kind of create asteroids. The asteroids themselves are cast when drawn, deal 2 damage to a random enemy, but they can be upgraded as well, as we'll see with the next card. But just for this card itself, it's a 3 mana, 3/2 elemental. Battlecry, deal 3 damage to an enemy minion, and then shuffle 3 asteroids into your deck. I think this is an auto include in an elemental deck. I don't know about you.
Yeah,
Like the
yeah.
stat line is good for the cost. Maybe it's a little bit weak for the cost,
I'd
but
say it's a
the
little weak for the cost.
deal 3 damage to an enemy minion makes up for that, though, right?
Yeah.
And then shuffling
I would say
these asteroids as well makes it like, you know, overall you're going to end up getting value.
it's good enough.
Okay.
But I'd say, yeah, it would probably be included in Elemental.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I think Shaman's got a lot of battle cry options as well right now, where like, you know, it can get pretty scaled pretty quickly. But
Yeah, I mean, Shaman tends to just kind of be the battle cry
yeah,
class for the most part with Shutterwalk and
oh,
Shutter Block.
yeah. Speaking of Shutterwalk, the last card we're going to be talking about today, I think, is like potentially big for Shutterwalk in Wild. But let's move on from Ultraviolet Breaker to Bolide Behemoth. This is a 4 mana 3/6 elemental. Battlecry, your asteroids deal 1 more damage this game, and Spellburst, shuffle 3 of them into your deck. So another way to get 3 asteroids into your deck, meaning that between just those 2 cards that we've looked at, you could have 12 of them in your deck. And each one of them, if you were to play the both or 2 Bolides as well, would be dealing 4 damage each when you draw them to a random enemy.
Seems pretty good.
It's my thought on it as well, honestly. Like, it's so hard to say with effects like this because it's like, how good is random amounts of damage to random things whenever? Like, at some point
really
when
hard
you end
to
up
say.
drawing it, right? It's, but, you know, things like Plague, Death Knight get played. Granted, they aren't, like, top tier, but they, you know, it's
I see Plague Death Knight all the time in Wild.
Oh, really? It's not as common to see in Standard, I feel like. Like, obviously, Death Knights will shuffle Plagues into your deck, but it's not like their main thing that they're doing in Standard, generally. Yeah. Which, thank goodness, because it's really annoying when they do that.
Yeah, it's not fun to play against.
Yeah. Do you run Steam Cleaner into that, then? Like, as a tech in your ATC bid?
I should, but no.
Yeah, it's, that's
now that it's becoming prevalent in Wild, I should add it into my band.
Yeah.
My Shutterwalk deck or just a few other ones, but...
Okay, moving on from this guy to Meteor Storm. This is a 6 mana nature spell. Deal 5 damage to all minions. Shuffle 5 asteroids into your deck. So what did we say? We had 12 before. Now we have 22 asteroids in the deck, including running 2 Meteor Storms.
I mean, this is just kind of a decent board clear spell even without the asteroids.
Yeah. This is the thing about these asteroid cards to me is like, it seems like they're kind of pulling their weight without the asteroid effect, and then the asteroids later on is just kind of like a nice bonus.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Seems good.
I think this is good as well. It's, you know, Shaman doesn't want for board clears, but this is a nice one overall. Okay, moving on. Triangulate. Now, in that video that I was watching, they used Triangulate to discover one of their asteroids to put even more asteroids into their deck. Granted, you could also use it on like Nebula to get like a lot more Nebulas. You could use this on anything. Let me actually.
You could use it on a lot of things.
2 mana, discover a different spell from your deck, shuffle 3 copies of it into your deck.
This has the potential to be a very good card, actually.
Yeah.
Very strong card.
Like, I don't know, are there many control variants of Shaman that pop up in Wild?
That's the thing. I'm like imagining this spell in like Mage or something else, and I'm shuddering at the fact. But
yeah,
for Shaman, I don't really like. There are some good Shaman spells, but I don't really know what specifically you'd want to be duplicating with this.
Yeah, like if nothing else, if you were running like an asteroid deck, you could use Triangulate on Meteor Storm if you don't want to use it on your asteroids themselves. to just
So I
have
almost feel like this
horrible.
feels really bad to play on asteroids unless your asteroids are strong already.
Yeah. But yeah, overall, this seems like it's a really good card. It just depends on.
I don't know if you'd even run this on the asteroid deck, but I'm sure it'll be ran with other decks.
Yeah, if Nebula becomes good enough, I could see you running Triangulate to duplicate your Nebulas, just so that, like, late game you can drop it 4 times. Like,
Yeah,
that's pretty decent.
it's not bad.
Okay, this one is the legendary that's a little bit confusing to me. It feels. Let's talk about it. Farseer Nobundo, 5 mana, 6/4, Draenei. Death Rattle, open the Galaxy's Lens. It absorbs the power of the next spell you cast. Here's Galaxy's Lens. It is a location. It says Spell Burst, absorb the spell's power. I am confused, and I haven't seen any clarification about this.
What I immediately think when I see this is you play a spell. I assume that spell is almost negated by Galaxy's Lens, but then
That's what I thought.
using a charge of Galaxy's Lens casts that spell.
Okay, so if it's like that, then you turn one spell into 2 copies of that spell over the course of, like, what,
A few
3 turns?
Yeah.
That's pretty good. I mean, it's a way to duplicate a spell, and the second time that you cast it, it costs for free, right?
Yeah, it's not bad actually.
The
This is
big
actually it's a weird card, but it seems pretty good.
the big issue with this is Farseer Nobundo. It's not a battle cry; it is a death
It's a
rattle.
death rattle.
Yeah.
Are you running into a lot of silences in standard?
Not necessarily, but like it being a death rattle means that you're playing this for like just a 6/4 with a death rattle on turn 5 at the earliest.
Yeah.
And you're not like guaranteed. Like more what you'll see in standard is people taking your minions with stuff like Yogg, or people deleting your minions with stuff like what's his name,
That stupid
Reno.
priest titan.
What's that? Sorry. Oh, the priest titan as well can come up, but no, Reno.
Yeah.
Like the
Yeah, I forgot about Reno as well.
Yeah, Reno. People are speculating that Reno is going to completely make starships like obsolete just by being in the game.
I would not be surprised, unfortunately.
Any
As
kind
much as
of
yeah, Reno's a very good card, but it
Yeah.
is miserable to play against.
like even thinking about it this way, if you were to play this on 5, it dies on 6. You cast your spell on 6. You have to use your spell 2 times before 10, because otherwise there's the potential that your location gets cleared if Reno gets dropped as well, right?
I mean, yeah, you're always going to run into the risk of something like that happening.
Yeah, there's not really any way to play around that.
Even with Reno and that existing in the game, I'd say that this card is probably still worth it to include into a variety of decks.
Okay, that's fair. It's worth
seems
noting
pretty
as well that this guy has the Draenei tag, which means that Velen can duplicate.
You could get him on
its
turn
death
3,
rattle.
technically.
Oh yeah, that's true as well. Yeah, you could play Planetary Navigator into Farseer Nobundo
Yeah, you
directly,
could technically.
and that's a pretty good deal, anyways. So that's it's very interesting. I'm like honestly, for something like the Galaxy's Lens, I would see it. I would have thought if it's not, or if it's taking away the spell's effect the first time, that it potentially should have 3 charges.
For all I know, it might not take the spell over. It could just the spell gets cast, and then you're able to just cast it again with that.
It takes that effect as well, so you can cast.
I don't think that that's how it works.
That's pretty busted.
I don't think that's how it's going to work. I think it will be you cast the spell, it gets absorbed into the location, and then you cast it again from the location.
Yeah, very
That seems
interesting, neat design space.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this last guy. This is the other legendary, Murmur. 6 mana, 6/6, elemental. Your battle cry minions cost 1, but immediately die after being played. What do you think?
I like this card. Solely for wild. I can think of a few instances where this would be nice, actually. Because one of the problems I have specifically when I'm playing Shutter Shaman is sometimes bouncing cards back to my hand that I don't want back to my hand. So being able to just get rid of minions that I solely just want for their effect, and then I just kind of want them gone, would be kind of nice.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, like thinking about this from that perspective, like in Wild in a Shudderwalk deck, you could play this on turn 10, let's just say, so you have 4 extra mana, and play 4 other battle cries that you just want to have in your Shudderwalk
Yeah.
later on, right?
Realistically, if I'm going to play this card, I'm not playing it on 7. I'm probably playing it on, unless I'm like desperate to
Exactly.
get a battle cry out on 7, I'm probably playing it on 8.
Well, because when you think about it, if you're desperate to get that battle cry out on 7, it's likely that it doesn't cost more than 7. I guess, like, what battle cry costs 8 or more that you
It would
just
either
need
be
to get on 7?
it would either, for my deck specifically, it would either be Shudderwalk himself or the Ziliax
Mm,
custom one.
yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah. The
when
one
I
that
run into
summons
9 mana,
duplicates or
summon a
whatever?
copy of this.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's fair. I think really the big, well, speaking of
Best case for this
Shudderwalk
is
itself.
you play it on turn 10 is best case scenario, and then
Yeah, exactly.
Shudderwalk. You can play, technically you could play Grumble to bounce it back to your hand as well, and then you have everything back to your hand. You could technically play this on turn 8, play your Shudderwalk, and then play Grumble, and you'll have all three of, or specifically Shudderwalk, and then also Murmur back in your hand at one
Now,
cost.
wait, it says they die immediately after being played.
Oh wait, immediately after being, I wasn't even seeing that. I
Really?
misread that. I misread the card.
So
Okay,
really, when you're playing this, you're just playing it to get the battle cries out. Like it's as if you're playing your battle cries
that
as
actually
spells,
might
right?
not work the way I want it to then.
But it only takes effect while so the way that I see this is you need to get some extra battle cries onto your Shudderwalk that you just haven't gotten for the rest of the game. You play Murmur, play a couple of extra battle cries, both of them die, whatever, it doesn't matter. The next turn, hopefully Murmur's dead by then, or you can kill it off somehow. And then you play your Shudderwalk and you've got all the effects on it that you need.
Technically speaking, you might still be able to do Murmur. I don't know if you were to bounce it back to your hand. Like if I was to play Murmur and play Grumble, its battle cry is it bounces it back to his hand. Does it die or does it live?
This is a question where I think we're just going to have to experiment with it and find out because
Depending on
order
how
of
that
operations is confusing, right?
Depending on how that interaction goes, this card could be very, very good in Shudderwalk.
Well, yeah, if it does allow you to bounce stuff back to your hand before the immediate kill takes place, this is like busted in Shudder Shaman as far as I'm concerned, right?
It's pretty good.
If it's not, then it's just a good way to get a lot of battle cries out.
But not in, it's...
Like you're using it essentially accelerate like 3 or 4 like large cost battle cries in one turn. That like, oh, I don't need the body, I just need the battle cry.
Yeah.
As for standard though,
I don't really know what. There's like, I don't know.
You could use like Murmur, Ultraviolet Breaker, Bolide Behemoth, like Cosmonaut. Like you could use it on just some of the stuff here.
Are any Battle Cry and Death Rattle minions?
What's that, sorry?
Oh, if there are any good Battle Cry and Death Rattle combo minions in this set.
Oh, like cards that have both. Here, let me
because that would be a good card to play it with. Otherwise, like I don't really know what you would run this with in standard. It just kind of seems not great in standard.
Can I keep both of these things on? It will not let me double select. Can I like control click? No. Okay, sick. It doesn't matter. I don't think there's a ton. I don't know that there's any because you would also want to be looking at specifically like Shaman or neutral, right? Yeah.
It doesn't look like it.
Yeah.
I feel like it's not the greatest for standard specifically.
Yeah. Well, like I said, if you were playing an asteroid deck or something, I guess you wouldn't want to use it on Bolide because the spell burst.
Like I see almost no instance where I would play Murmur in a standard deck.
Well, let me give you the
dream
scenario.
You could do it for Cosmonaut.
That's what I was about to say. Yeah, Murmur, Cosmonaut, Nebula.
I think Cosmonaut is the only minion I would play it on, solely because it's not like you're using a big body.
Yeah.
Because it's just a 5/5.
It's worth noting if you were to play Murmur Cosmonaut, you can't play Nebula that turn.
Yes. It just seems not great.
Yeah, I don't know. It's such a weird card in general, but I think it might be better. It's also worth noting that it is an elemental, so it could just slot directly into an elemental deck.
I think it has more potential in wild than it does in
I would
standard.
probably agree
From
with
what
you
I've
on
seen.
that, yeah. But it's so tough to say with stuff like who
Yeah, I
knows.
mean, it is impossible to say. We could be missing something like unbelievably broken for all we know.
Yeah. Well, my overall opinion of Shaman, like these cards for the Shaman set for whatever Great Dark Beyond, is it seems like it's probably got the best set of cards overall out of the ones that I've maybe looked at.
Yeah, I mean, aside from First Contact, there isn't really any cards here that I'm like, yeah, I don't think that this is good. Or, yeah, most of them seem pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm feeling the same way here, right? I think that all of these have the potential to see a lot of play, but it just depends on, kind of where the meta ends up going. And I think that Murmur specifically might be a little bit too strong and wild. If I see it how I've played into your Shaman or your Shudderwalk deck enough times to know that like it can be really bad if you get enough battle cries onto your
It can be
Shudderwalk.
pretty oppressive sometimes.
I mean, yeah. So I think that overall it's probably going to be pretty strong, but I don't know if it's going to be like ban worthy strong.
No,
Or
I don't think
nerf
it'll be
worthy
that strong, but it'll be a good addition to Wild, I think.
Anyways, if there's anything that we've missed, uh, shoot us a message, put a comment on the video, and yeah, there's only one more class to go over, and that's going to be Paladin, and they're releasing the information about that tomorrow. So
Oh boy, Paladin.
yeah, I wonder if they're going to put more hand buff in.
Please no. Please no.
So yeah, look forward to that video hopefully tomorrow, and we'll catch you next time.